Good evening and thanks very much for joining us. I'm Brittany Ramsey. Well, it looks like Ontario schools will not reopen on Monday as many had hoped for. Premier Doug Ford has sent a letter to medical experts and education officials asking for their input on schools. Responses have been requested back by 5 o'clock tomorrow. Meanwhile, two of Thunder Bay's education leaders and its top doctor say they're discouraged by this latest delay. Avery McRae reports.
This was the letter sent by Premier Doug Ford voicing his concerns with the reopening of schools and asking for the views of pediatric and medical experts, local medical officers of health, and education boards and unions. The Premier is asking for advice on 7 major topics, including whether in-person learning is safe for students and staff, should teachers be fully vaccinated, and with indoor gatherings not commencing until July under Ontario's reopening plan, is it safe for in-person learning to resume sooner? Dr. Janet DeMille was one of many tagged in the letter, and she admits the timing of it is a concern.
Well, I think it was a reflection, certainly getting that letter, that the decision hasn't been made and seeking ongoing information. And I actually think that there's been a lot of input to the Premier around it. So I wasn't really understanding why he was requesting further information.
The questions outlined by the Premier are the same ones Lakehead Public Schools Director of Education Ian McRae has been asking for weeks. McRae appreciates the Premier's reaching out for advice from those outside his cabinet, but was hoping these answers would have been answered some time ago.
Some concern as to the lateness of asking specific questions around the COVID situation, and we had hoped that we would have answers to some of those questions from the myriad of health authorities that are dealing with it at both in Ontario, across Canada, and the world.
The feeling is mutual with Director of Education Pino Tassoni of the Catholic School Board. He assures the safety measures the board has put in place are second to none, and given the low case count in Thunder Bay at this time, he hopes to end the school year on a positive note with kids back in the classroom, even if the time is short-lived.
That's important, whether it's 2, 3, 4 weeks. The sooner the better. I'm a strong proponent of in-class learning, that we know that that's where our kids learn best. However, we do understand that there may be some delays, but if we could get them back even for 2 or 3 weeks, it'll be positive for our staff and our students.
Both Tassoni and McRae said it would take anywhere from 3 to 5 days to prepare for in-person learning once an announcement is made. Avery McRae, TBT News.
Now, the Premier's decision to reach out on whether to reopen schools is being met with mixed reviews. Doug Ford says he understands the benefits of a return to class, but wants assurance it can be done safely. But the opposition at Queen's Park have accused Ford of punting his decision-making responsibility when it matters the most. Colin DeMello reports.
As the future of the current school year hangs in the balance, parents came to Queen's Park to demand a return.
They should be open tomorrow. We are sick of waiting for this. It is safe to go back right now.
When schools were shut down in April, the Premier promised they would return when cases receded.
I want nothing more than to be able to open the schools up again as soon as possible. But we all need to work together right now to get the community spread under control.
But 6 weeks later, the Premier seems uncertain and is now looking for a consensus on in-class learning. Ford sent a letter today to medical officers of health, pediatric associations, and education unions asking for input on what the government should do next.
Yes, we received the survey letter and understand that the Premier is looking for responses from all sectors by Friday.
In the letter, the Premier says new modeling is expected to show an additional 2,000 to 4,000 new cases of COVID-19 by the end of July if schools are reopened, and asks a series of questions, including, is the reopening of schools for in-person learning safe for students? But Ontario's Chief Medical Officer of Health is making it clear.
I've been supporting opening schools for in-class attendance.
Dr. David Williams says with the exception of one region, the majority of public health units want their schools to reopen. And a number of groups have told the government to send students back.
We actually have that consensus already. There was a letter that was signed by every pediatric organization in the province that went to Premier Ford on May 20th. He also received a letter from the Association of Medical Officers of Health also concurring it was safe to open schools.
The letter also flies in the face of what the Ford government has said about schools being safe.
What the Chief Medical Officer of Health of Ontario said is, I quote, "Our schools have been safe. We want to keep them safe."
Today, Dr. Williams reiterated that position, that schools are safe. Some are now questioning whether the government intends to reopen schools at all.
Well, it appears that the Premier is just completely abdicating responsibility and playing dodgeball with who's going to make this decision. And now the Premier seems to be suggesting schools are not safe. So the mixed messaging is creating confusion and seems to be paralyzing the government.
Critics are accusing the Premier of looking for a reason to back out of his promise.
On to the district's COVID-19 numbers now. The health unit reporting 5 new cases today. This marks a full 4 weeks of single-digit case counts. 2 cases are in the Thunder Bay area and 3 are from elsewhere in the district. 3 are due to close contact and 2 have unknown exposures. Meanwhile, 4 new variant cases have been identified, running the total number of VOC cases to 94. Overall, the total case count now sits at 3,190. 19 are considered active, which is 2 more than on Wednesday. Last week, the Thunder Bay District set a record for local vaccination numbers. Dr. Janet DeMille says we may not be able to consistently match that, but she does expect weekly totals to remain fairly high for the foreseeable future. Nearly 11,000 doses were administered last week, smashing the district's previous high. Brian Bonazzo has more.
8 to 10,000 maybe.
Dr. Janet DeMille says that's a realistic vaccination rate over the coming weeks, not the 11,000 shots that were administered last week.
I'm not sure if we'll achieve 11,000 again. That was a really good week. We had many people out there immunizing, many groups, both here in Thunder Bay, in the district, and First Nation communities. So it was a really successful week.
The health unit and the hospital are currently getting about 9,000 combined doses per week. But pharmacies receive their vaccines from a separate allotment. And with more than 20 pharmacies across the district now approved to administer the shot, the number of doses coming into the region may go up. As of last Saturday, there had been more than 95,000 vaccinations across the Thunder Bay District Health Unit's catchment area, and about 14,000 people were fully vaccinated at that time. DeMille hopes to get clearance from the province soon to administer more second doses.
We have seen some individuals qualify for a second dose, and I do hope to hear about second doses for older individuals, particularly those over 80 and those over 70. And I hope we're going to hear something more about that next week and could start to implement that at some point in June.
And for those who've received the AstraZeneca shot, there's good news and bad news. There are currently none of those shots left here, but DeMille believes enough will arrive to give out second doses to all who want them.
There were 2,000 first doses administered here, so I am anticipating that we will get that to be able to do the second dosage should people choose to get the second dose of that AstraZeneca.
More than 50% of the total population has now gotten at least one shot, and that number is climbing by the day. That's one of the reasons DeMille says she's not as worried about the spread of the virus over the May-long weekend as she has been following previous holidays. Ryan Bonazzo, TBT News.
The Thunder Bay Police Services Board released a public survey today asking for input on the future of local policing. The Community Planning Survey hopes to engage residents in Thunder Bay and Oliver Papoonge and garner what improvements need to be made. The focus is to determine what needs to be the top police priorities over the next 3 years, so interviews and focus groups will be conducted as well. Police Board Chair Kristen Oliver says effective and efficient policing means different things to different people. By making the survey available online to residents, she hopes they hear what policing issues need to be prioritized to serve the community needs.
It's really important that we hear from our community members what it is they're hoping to see, where the deficiencies are in our police service, what they'd like to see us improve on, where they think we're doing really well. Obviously, the service provides the policing in the community, but it's up to the Police Services Board to determine what the policies are going to look like and how we're going to deliver policing in Thunder Bay.
The survey is available until June 25th on the Police Services Board website at thunderbaypsb.ca. Community engagement activities will also be conducted over the next 6 weeks with COVID protocols in place. The Police Services Strategic Plan for 2021 to 2023 is expected to be completed for the fall. A young family in O'Connor Township has lost everything after a fire destroyed their home yesterday afternoon. The blaze broke out just before 4 o'clock at this property on Whitaker Road. A neighbor noticed smoke coming from the house, and O'Connor Fire Chief Henry Mattis says it was completely engulfed in flames when their crews arrived. The neighbor was able to kick the door down and get the family's 2 dogs safely out of the house, but a cat did not make it out. The owners had gone to town and came back to find their home completely gone. A GoFundMe was set up today for the couple and their 2 small children. It's already surpassed its goal of $10,000. Mattis says the cause will likely remain unknown due to the total destruction from the fire. Over 100 Thunder Bay residents came together at Waverly Park last night to stand together in solidarity with Palestine. In recent weeks, over 250 Palestinians have been killed amid attacks by Israeli military before a ceasefire was agreed upon. Avery McRae reports.
Free, free Palestine!
The simple message rang throughout Waverly Park, where city residents from all backgrounds stood as one in solidarity for those oppressed, depossessed, and dehumanized in Palestine.
For us to know that the struggle they are facing, they should not be facing alone.
For over 2 hours, protesters chanted, listened to guest speakers share their stories before marching around Waverly Park.
1, 2, 3, 4, occupation no more! 1, 2, 3, 4, occupation no more!
2 of the night's speakers was Joyce and Peter Fergus Moore, who for 3 months in 2013 and 2014 served as volunteer human rights monitors in Palestine, where 2 million Palestinians are denied the freedom of movement, blocked by the Israeli military forces on all sides, and confined to just a small area of land.
Hundreds of people have died in Gaza, which is basically an open-air prison, because people are not free to come and go. The freedoms we take for granted, they don't have.
The events all stem from the occupation of Palestinian territories, which dates back to 1948. Event organizers say people must question the actions of an occupier who indiscriminately targets civilians, women and children in the name of self-defense. And with some in the world pushing the idea that support for Palestine is anti-Semitism, Ismail, a native of Palestine himself, says that's just not true.
We are not anti-Semitic. There is nothing anti-Semitic about condemning Israel. Jewish people are our brothers and sisters, just as Muslim people are, just as Christians are, just as anybody, any human being is.
The city as a whole has already raised over $16,000 in support of Palestine, showing no matter if it's a charity event or a social issue like this, Thunder Bay will show their support.
They want to hear the message, and they want to act on it. And one of the speakers tonight, at least, is going to talk about what people can do about this situation. We are not helpless. There is things we can do.
Resist the occupation and the apartheid system, and we really want freedom. That's at the end of the day.
Those looking to help the cause can donate online through various organizations, sign petitions, and continue to share news through social media to let their voices be heard for those who don't have one. Avery McRae, TBT News.
The federal government is investing over $3 million to bring high-speed internet to some rural areas north of Thunder Bay. The Universal Broadband Project will be carried out by T-Baytel and will add faster internet to 689 homes. T-Baytel CEO Dan Topatai says he's proud to bring fiber to residents in the areas around Hawkeye Lake, One Island Lake, Trout Lake, and Barnum Lake, along with parts of Lappy and Gorevale. The full cost of the project is over $4 million, and Topatai hopes to see it completed by the end of this year.
Yeah, anything we can do to bring state-of-the-art fiber technology to more homes and businesses, throughout rural Thunder Bay is critically important. Whether that's allowing the customers to be able to participate in a global economy, or keeping in touch with loved ones, or working and learning from home is absolutely critical. And, with no clear line of sight as to when any of that might end, I think it's very important that we get this project completed as quickly as we can.
T-Baytel chose these specific areas outlined because they are shovel-ready projects and will be able to be completed in the one-year time frame.
Well, Avery, I remember just a few weeks ago